Beautiful, beautiful. So, hello and welcome to the Radiant Rebirth online retreat, where we are igniting our age of empowerment, owning who we truly are, gaining clarity of direction so that we can take that soul aligned action with grace, joy, and ease. Today, I have the pleasure of being joined by Jewels Arnes. Jules is an ascension coach, a teacher, an author, a healer, who is a pioneer in advancing the human experience. Jules has developed the superpower of tracing energy patterns to find beliefs or patterns that keep us in the cycle of aging and disease. So, Jules, it's such a pleasure to have you here today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, it's my honor. Thank you for having me.
Oh, so excited. I'm so excited about today. So I know that your topic is really about activation. So we're going to be tapping into the potency of the frequency 963 hertz for cellular ascension and discovering why our DNA is the most advanced technology there is. Can you share a little bit more about what that is and what that means and why it's so important for our audience, women over 50, stepping into that age of empowerment? Why is this so important?
Oh, this is definitely my passion, being a woman over 50. I really, we get to this place where it's time to harness that frequency of, source, divine, that connection. And what I have found and I won't go into the long story because I don't know that it's relevant here, but that when we start to focus on a frequency that is stored in our DNA, that we start to activate those other 10 strands. Right now, we're really experiencing only two of 12 of our DNA strands. And that frequency of source is transcribed there, and that frequency has an intelligence that we can connect to and start to bypass not only the aging cycle, but we can start to tap into an intelligence where we start to experience more of the multidimensional body. And like, what is that? And that's what we're all starting to discover is just how capable we are of doing things that at one time seemed impossible.
Amazing, amazing. And does it seem that, women over 50 can naturally tap into this? Is this something that comes online naturally over the age of 50, or is this something that we could be doing more proactively to sort of connect to this?
Yeah, it's really for anybody at any age, but I find that, especially this kind of age when we have more time for ourselves and we're kind of searching for what's next too. It's like, okay, I did my job of raising the kids and all of these wonderful things. And then it's like, oh, well, what do I do now? And it's such a perfect opportunity to open up our vessel to allow the divine to inform our lives and what is next. And that just kind of reignites that passion and enthusiasm and inspiration, but it's coming from a very authentic space to where we really do start to walk in the path of the divine because we're inviting that frequency to be activated through our body. So it's not just happening in our mind, it's an actual experience of our vessel in that collaboration. And so it is a very unique way to walk with the divine because we're activating a part of our body that maybe we hadn't experienced before, which also allows us to kind of move past those belief systems of I'm getting old, or I'm going to have menopause, or it's this. And we start to see, oh, okay, those are just belief systems. And I'm actually capable of living a life that's way beyond what we thought was possible just by activating this frequency.
Oh, I love that so much. Just by activating the frequency, we can sort of shed all of those kind of beliefs that sort of that come with aging, quote unquote aging. I feel personally this is my most powerful, potent time, and I'm excited about being this age. So when you say sort of accessing the frequency, what are the ways that we can access the frequency?
Mm, that is, it's our innate being already. And
Mm,
just by asking, we really start to awaken that frequency. That is always step one is I'm willing, I'm ready, and use my body as a vessel, inform my body, inform my life. And with that, our body starts to activate that frequency. And, our bodies are already multidimensional. They already are the most advanced technology there is. When we
mm,
ask to have that experience, it gives our consciousness somewhere to go so that we can start to experience what that frequency is. And by doing that, we also start to enhance our intuitive gifts to where we stop looking at the programmed experience of the body and start to open up to the gifts that are held in more of an intuitive space. So, like, really, our intuition is
mm,
the next of human evolution because our five senses are based in those first two strands of the DNA. When we go multidimensional with the body, we start to see before we see, hear before we hear, know before we think it, and we feel without the chemical response or the primal response of the body. And so it becomes very clean and very pure.
mm. That's beautiful. When you start to tap into this frequency, are there is it easy to hold this frequency?
Mhm.
Or does it sometimes happen that it kind of comes and it goes? How easy is it to sort of maintain this connection to this ultimate source of creation?
Wow, such a beautiful question. And that is the practice. It is a
Mhm,
practice. Just like everything else, it's a practice of where am I holding my consciousness? Am I holding my consciousness in the programmed experience of my body? Or am I attuning? And that's where
mhm,
that's my passion is using consciousness for what it is. It's a tool. It's a tool to attune to the intelligence of source and remember our innate being. And when we use it in that way, we always are using consciousness to attune to the frequency of source versus trying to figure it out or all of those loops that we get stuck in is like, oh, I'm going to make this happen. And that's not the way we are supposed to use consciousness. Consciousness is a gift that we can use as a tool to attune to the intelligence of source that is stored in our bodies. And when we do that, we start to open up in this beautiful collaboration through the intelligence that's stored in our DNA so that we can not only ascend our consciousness, but we can also ascend our body.
That's amazing. I think sometimes, people, when they think of consciousness, they think of consciousness as a place,
Mm,
or as something to attain, as opposed to consciousness as a
mhm.
tool of connection. Do you have specific steps or ways to use consciousness as a tool that you could share with us?
Yes, there's a really quick example I can give you because the first step of consciousness is recognizing what level of consciousness you're in.
Mm,
And the first three levels are more of that trying to make it happen when we're looping in the program to reality. When we shift into the fourth, most of us know what that is. It's the listen and do. And
mm,
so a really easy way of knowing which level of consciousness you're in, and I will just do it, takes like a minute. So if you shut your eyes, just imagine a sunflower. Just
yes.
imagine what a sunflower looks like. And if you can't imagine, just let the rest of your body bring in the image, either through a sense or hearing. Okay, so now open your eyes and shake it out. And now we're going to ask, before we shut our eyes, we're going to ask that the frequency of source, that 963 hertz, be released in our mind and our body. So just feeling that turn on just by asking, and then shut your eyes. And then
Mhm,
ask the frequency of source, that divine frequency, to show you a sunflower. And just notice how it feels different. The image may be the same, it may be different, but you're allowing the image to come through the frequency of source. So,
mhm,
right there is the difference between living from our programmed consciousness or attuning and allowing the frequency
Mhm.
of source to guide us.
That's amazing. So, hopefully everyone will have followed along with that exercise. So for me, the first sunflower was sort of in my mind, like a
Mhm.
picture, as opposed to when I connected to the source energy, it was in my body, it was in
Mm.
my being. It came from inside somewhere and emanated out. And I was the sunflower, is what the feeling was.
Oh, that gave me chills. I love that. What I
Oh,
heard when you were saying that is the higher level of where we want to go, because
mhm,
it starts with, maybe it's a belief, and then it
mhm,
becomes faith or hope, and then it becomes a knowing, right? It
mm.
becomes that we know this, it's the embodiment level. And that's what it feels like to live through the frequency of the divine, is that we no longer question it. It's a knowing, and you can't take away something you just know it.
That's right. You just know it. You just know it. In your experience, when you're working, I'm still the sunflower. In your experience, it's so beautiful. When you've been working with clients and they tap into this knowing, they just know that they know. What changes have you seen in their lives, in their relationships, in maybe their levels of creativity or what they go on to create? What have you noticed?
It's it becomes magical. Sometimes it's almost hard to put into words, but some of the fun things are things like being able to be the strongest they've ever been in their life. They allow that quantum body or that technology to take over when they're exercising, and they're able to do things that they've never been able to do before. Things like maybe having injuries and being able to walk the dog for the first time in 6 years. Like that, some of the things that people are able to do because they're not experiencing the program body anymore. So relationships begin to ascend, and those old maybe programs that you would have the same little loops around just start to fade away, because everything becomes an experience of the divine. And in that experience, there's the opportunity to ascend just about anything. I mean, really, there's no limitation.
Wow. And that is so much a cornerstone of my work, no limitation, being able to push past boundaries. What have you noticed in your own life? So when you said you were over 50, I was like, gosh, is she? Um, so what have you noticed for yourself in your own life as you've tapped into this incredible body of work?
I'm just gonna this one I just feel like is kind of so profound that it's the one I like to talk about. But so I actually did a DNA test.
Mm.
It's a test, it's called tree diagnostic, and you can test yourself to see what your telomere age is. So I did the test, and I did it again 10 months later. And in that 10 months, what I did was our particle accelerator, which is a product that I use quantum technology in. And I did the DNA activations and worked closely with the divine frequency. And in 10 months, I went from 37 to 19 years old. No,
You're kidding. That's
I'm not.
that's amazing. And so when you talk about, so you talking about just you were just using the frequency or did you do something else?
So that's a lot what we use is I have 12 codes that work with the 12 strands of DNA, and it's ascending all of the programming. So in the way the body is kind of stuck operating in what I call a distorted operating system, because we're only using 2 of 12
Mm,
DNA strands. So when
mm,
we start
mm.
to focus on holding our consciousness in the other 10, and we can use these frequencies or the specific frequency of 963, but we have different codes to activate them. We start to experience the quantum body, and the body starts to show, oh, actually, aging is just a disease of consciousness.
Wow,
And we aren't supposed to experience cell mutation. It's only experienced that way because we're focusing on just these two strands.
amazing. And we've often heard, we only used 5% or 10% of our potential, and I guess this is really what you're pointing to. And if we were able to tap into all of the strands of our DNA, what could be possible? What could be possible? It really is unlimited, that sense of potentiality. Um, so what do you have coming up? What can people do to work with you, or to get in contact with you? What do you have? What goodies do you have coming up?
Mhm. Thank you for asking. So, the easy way to come in and start to activate your body and experience it, and especially in community, is my membership. It's a very simple way to come in and have a lot of support. And with that also comes with the Evo Star transmission. So you get 24/7 transmissions from our evolution technology that is working with your DNA on a daily basis. And then the end of October, I'm actually going to be teaching a light language class so that you can start to speak through the tones of those 12 DNA codes that are activating the DNA. So I'm really excited about that. It's something I've never done before. So I'm really excited to teach it for the first time. So that'll be the end of October.
Amazing. That is amazing. Wow. Okay. So as our ladies, as our women really tap into all of this potential, and they begin to shift and to change, and she comes more online, have you noticed in your experience any fears coming up associated with this expansion? Sometimes I know I've seen in my practice, as the expansions happen, all of the other stuff kind of, sort of crops up, all other relationships, and sometimes there can be some difficulty with, you were talking about turning on all of the lights, right? So what happens in that brightness sometimes can be a little bit scary. So what have you noticed in your practice, and how would you recommend that she kind of hold herself as she begins to grow and expand?
What a beautiful question. I call it the static, right? When we start to shift our body. But what's really interesting about that is that that experience of ascension is the primal body, because our primal
Yeah.
body doesn't want us to change. But
Mhm.
when we start to activate these other strands, we have somewhere for our consciousness to go. So we can either experience that, or we can experience the multidimensional level of it. And it can be as simple as, okay, I recognize that my body is trying to keep me safe, and is pulling me back into the program experience of my mind and of my body. And in that, we can just see it as information of, oh, it could be as simple as I'm just afraid. And
Mhm.
then once we see that, we don't have to continue there. We can ask that that frequency of source be released, and then show me what's beyond this.
Mhm.
Give me somewhere to go. And when we have trouble, I say it over and over again. I'm like, divine, inform my body, inform my life, pour into me, give me strength, give me stamina. And I can feel like crap as long as you keep pouring into me, because eventually that chemical response of the body is going to go away, and I can move back into my heart space and be of service and I say this, divine is the CEO of my life. And as long as I remember that, all of the other little nuances of the ego can kind of go in the back seat, and give it some candy every once in a while, and know that truly, it's not about me. And we always want to make it about me, right? And it's like, when I remember that, I'm like, okay, I can just sit here and feel uncomfortable and know that I can keep surrendering. And it's not always easy, right? But it
Mhm.
is a way. And then the more that we do it, and the more that we have community supporting
Yeah.
us, that's a big part, is having others that are walking the path.
Oh, I love that so much. Keep pouring into me and show me what is beyond this. It is not about me. That's so beautiful. It's something that I say. constantly, it's not about me, just guide me, it's not about me. And surrender is is such an important word, so I really want to thank you for bringing that up. Can you speak to what surrender means for you?
Yeah, I really was sitting in this back there. I was at the eclipse, the full eclipse, and on
Mhm.
my drive there, I kept thinking, I'm like, is it surrender? And what I actually came to is that it's for me, it's submitting. It's
Mm,
actually submitting and allowing the intelligence to take over completely. Because the act of surrender is maybe the first step, but then the act of submitting my life and it just, I don't know, something about that little shift really made a difference for me. And what that means is kind of like what we were talking about is it's not about me.
yeah.
Inform my body, like literally come in, activate that frequency of source, and that frequency is in control of everything.
Oh, I love that. Because surrender, I guess, can feel a little bit passive, and submitting feels like letting go, but actively. So there's an active role to submitting. It
Yeah.
feels to me, which is almost more of a conscious choice about how you're letting go. Oh, I love that. Thank you so much. This has been I mean, honestly, I could keep going. I could just keep going on and on and on and just talk to you for hours. I absolutely love your work. I think it's really important and incredibly powerful, especially for our audience. How can people get in contact with you?
Mhm. It's super easy. You can go to jewelsarnes.com. It's JEWELSARNES.com is the easiest way.
Perfect. And is there one or two sort of key things that you'd like to leave with our audience?
I would say just invite the frequency of your DNA to turn on. And then from there, explore, just like with the sunflower, instead of trying to figure out what that would be, allow the intelligence of your body to show you, and then start playing in what's possible.
Amazing. Playing in what's possible. Jules, thank you so much for being here today, for sharing all this wisdom and magic with us. And I'm just really grateful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.